afternoon. I bid to everyone. Welcome to our workshop on grammar rules and grammar reasons. So I'd like to introduce the speaker first. Our speaker today is Dr. Creighton Walker. He has been working in the English department at the University of Birmingham since 2006 as a senior lecturer in applied linguistics. He is a corpus linguist whose research interests are in collocation and packing grammar. Creighton has more than 25 years of experience in ELT as a teacher, teacher trainer, and materials developer. Before joining the university, Creighton had a career in English language teaching. He taught English for specific purposes in London, Riyadh, Stuttgart, and was in charge of the English department of a large language school in Germany for over 10 years. He has worked as a teacher, teacher trainer, and materials developer in EFL, ESL. So before we begin, I would like to invite the Vice President of PELTA to give an opening speech. I ask all the participants to please mute yourselves.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm not the Vice President of PELTA, but I think our Vice President has some line issues here. So anyway, my name is Denise, and I'm the Secretary of PELTA. And on behalf of the Penang English Language Learning and Teaching Association, we welcome you. For those of you who are first time at our event, since last year, since the pandemic, we've been having a lot of online webinars such as this, and we do hope to see you more often. Okay, so we are a non-governmental organization based in Penang, Malaysia, and do come and check out our website and Facebook, and you will see, just subscribe to us and you'll get more information. Right, I won't waste any time, so I'm going to hand this back over to Kasvini, our moderator. And thank you very much, Creighton, for making time for us. For everyone's information, Dr. Creighton Walker is actually streaming from Birmingham today, and I think it's about 8 a.m. in Birmingham. Right, over to you, Creighton.
Yes, it's 8 a.m. in Birmingham. Birmingham, it always rains, so I've got a feeling that where you are may actually be a bit better than it is here. It's kind of dark, rainy, and well, it's the normal situation in Birmingham. Welcome to the University of Birmingham. This is actually my second bedroom in my apartment. The University of Birmingham has actually been second bedrooms in apartments for the last 1.5 years. We've all been working since a famous date, 23rd of March last year. We've been all working from our second bedrooms. So the university has actually been closed. At the moment, it is open again, and we have a few students who are going, but at the moment they've told me to stay at home. They don't want me there at the university. They want me in my second bedroom, which is not a problem for me because it means I can have a cup of tea every so often and this sort of thing. Yes, you've now learned a little bit about me. There's two aspects to my life. There's the academic university work, but also many years of teaching in Saudi Arabia and London, and particularly Germany. And also I know Malaysia and Penang quite well. When they allowed us to visit, I visited Penang quite a number of times and actually know some of the people in Penang and have done live face-to-face. This is the first time I've done a Penang PELTA workshop by Zoom or whatever it is, Microsoft groups or whatever you're using out there. And I'm delighted. And also it's great to see Indonesia and India and various other, we've got the European Song Contest this evening, and it feels a bit like the European Song Contest. There was a reason for the song, by the way, which you will be seeing. Don't panic. All will be revealed. Let's share my screen, and you will have to remind me at certain points about the technical side. Can you actually see it? Let's do that again. That,
yeah, seeing it. We're seeing the full screen. Yep.
Yeah, so you should now be able to see the PowerPoint.
Yes, we're seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, good. And I've forgotten what we did to hide this. We went here and we said, oh, hide floating something or other. There we go. There we go. And we've hidden the floating. So it's from the original idea is from Diane Larson Freeman, who is a professor, American professor, and she talks. Her book is about grammaring, and I'm hoping that I'm beginning to annoy some of you already, because you might be sort of saying, "Well, this isn't English. You can't say things like grammaring." But she goes from teaching grammar to grammaring, so she's using the continuous aspect there. And her argument is that rules are never going to work, that they capture something which is static, and language is dynamic, it's continually changing. And what's quite fascinating for me is how global English is no longer our English, this little island where Birmingham is the middle of the island. It's actually a global language which is being used globally and which brings tremendous change. You may I don't know whether you're in the controversy at the moment about whether it's fewer or less and all this kind of thing. The answer is actually it's less. Fewer, it means you're a little bit dated nowadays. You've got to keep up with the language. And an element of that is that, of course, we move outside of rules. But we are logical beings, and that's reflected in our language. So as soon as we say things like, well, that can't be explained, most of the time, actually, it can. And the way that we use rules reflects the way that we think and the way that we behave, and the rules are just a reflection of other aspects of the language. And you could argue that I hate this term native speaker as well, because you've got lots of areas, nuanced areas of native speaker. Is somebody from Singapore a native speaker or not? Experienced users of the language. You can argue that those experienced users of the language are not using rules. They may not even be aware of the rules. In order to train language teachers, a lot of the time, if we're talking about experienced or native speakers, users of the language, you actually have to teach them the rules so that they can actually teach it. And also what's quite interesting is that when they start thinking about the rules, they become less fluent, and they're not such good users of language. So, I mean, my mother never used to use, she was normal, she never used to use language rules, never knew them, but her English was better than mine. So some of these differences we can see. Here we've got a rule. I don't know whether any of you actually teach this rule where we use some in the affirmative. Any, you know, do you have any? I don't have any. Yes, I have some. So we shouldn't have it in the question. Now, I'm a corpus linguist. I can look at currently at about 1 million words of the language, at least, maybe even up to 100 million of the words of the language simultaneously on the computer. And this is the kind of evidence that I can pull up. This is not the case. Some is used very frequently in questions, but there's a logic to it. So asking for something you know is possible, is there some way? Or even in the negative, isn't there some way that we can sort it? Well, the mere fact that you know or you feel that there is something there that can be used to sort it means that you're going to be using some and not any. If you didn't think and didn't believe that there was some way, you would say anyway. but you believe that there is some way, which is why you're asking, isn't there some way, or is there some way? Expressing suspicion. You've got that suspicion, and so you're going to be using some, because you're suspicious. You're sure there's something wrong or there's something there. You can't offer anything, because if you offer anything, there's nothing to offer. Would you like any tea? Yes, I would. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I haven't got any. You've got to have some tea in order to offer it. Would you like some coffee? Would you like some tea? And you can see that maybe if we say these as exceptions to the rule, there's so many exceptions to the rule. That's the famous thing about grammar in English language, is there's so many exceptions to the rule that the rule to somehow becomes somewhat meaningless and useless. Well, are these exceptions? And the point is, if they are exceptions, calling them exceptions somehow misconstrues what actually is happening. Is that the problem is the rule, not that these are exceptions to the rule. Even if they are exceptions to the rule, there's reasons why they are exceptions to the rule. So what you have in front at the moment of you on the screen is the reason. Here, they're not following that rule. You may argue that that's an oversimplification of the rule. And it's the same with expressing perception, that you feel that there's something there, so that you're going to be using some. The present simple is used to talk about current or habitual actions. The past simple is used to talk about the past. Well, this is the temporal element. This is the time element of the grammar tense. It is what language teachers tend to teach. We are over-focused on time and that temporal element, but time is only one dimension to language. And what we have here is, you can see I've sampled 500 instances of pronoun plus research showed. So I've gone into my computer, my corpus, and asked it to pull up 500 examples of I, you, she, or possessive in this case, my, your, his, her, research showed, compared with my, your, his, her, their, research shows. And what I'm trying to get over here, based on the corpus evidence, is that when we use showed as a writer or a speaker, I am distancing myself. Yes, when we're talking about the time, the thing happened in the past, and so it's going to be a further distance away from me than the present. That's the time aspect. But this is a different aspect. It is the aspect of how much I believe that I am right and that my research is right. So that if I believe my research is right, I'm going to be saying my research shows. And if I believe your research is wrong, I'm going to say your research showed, but my research shows. It's the kind of things that if you listen to politicians or marketing people or lawyers, that they will do also with the language. It can be, you can argue that it's a persuasion technique. But the classic is, their research showed, but my research shows. It's nothing to do with when the research was carried out. It's not that my research is being carried out at the moment and their research was carried out in the past. It's nothing to do with the time element. It's to do with what we call writer's voice. Here, the writer is deliberately distancing what he or she has problems with. Their research or some aspects of their research showed. However, and it doesn't have to be your research, however, Denise's research shows, because it's immediately showing that I follow Denise's research and my research agrees a lot more with hers than these other people. So it's a way of distancing. So we're using the tense to distance. You can see it, things like I wish I had. You could argue that that's subjunctive, yes, but subjunctive is also a reflection of this kind of thing, is that it's nothing to do with time, because it's I wish. You're probably thinking about the future. but is probably, you know, is it likely in the future or less likely? And it's, again, we're using the past. The rule that is often taught in language teaching is that the present perfect used to talk about an action that started in the past and is still ongoing. We also teach present perfect. So this is bringing another very important point, is that the grammar tenses do not have one use. All the grammar tenses have multiple use. Well, most of them, most of the major ones we teach will have more than one use, more than one situation they are used in. So the present perfect has, as far as language teaching goes, these two classic situations, something that started in the past and is ongoing. I've taught in Birmingham. I've been at Birmingham for 12, 14 years, and I'm still here. Or it describes something which is rather indefinite in the past. I visited Malaysia. I'm not telling you when, but I visited I've visited Indonesia. But these are things where I'm sort of just giving you the briefest information. As soon as I go into detail, I switch my grammar. I went to Malaysia in 2019 and again in 2020. So I'm giving you specific information. When I give you specific information, I switch to the past simple. So to a very large extent, the present perfect is this vague tense. And we've just seen that the past simple is a way of distancing things away from yourself. That's one use of it. It's also used to give specific information about the past. But if you want to be vague and not give specific information, we tend to use the present perfect. Research has shown. So if you look at the next one, and here I'm again using the corpus. I've asked for 500 examples where it's research showed or studies showed compared with research has shown or studies have shown. So this left side, all I've asked for is 500 examples of research or studies and studies showed, and also sentences including has shown. And so I've got 500 examples of either in my 500 sample of research showed, studies have shown, research has shown. And then I've looked at what proportion of each occur in my 500 sample, so that I can see that with the present perfect, studies have shown is 39%. Research has shown is 51%. So if we look at the present perfect, that accounts for 90% of what's there. And the simple past, the specific tense, is only 10% of the total sample, 50. Whereas if we put the definite article or determiner in front, the, then of course we're being a lot more specific. You know, the person who, that not just any person, the research that was carried out by so-and-so. So now I'm being specific, and if I'm being specific, what do I expect? I expect that this error message comes up on my screen, which I'm going to get rid of. I expect, thank you so much, I would expect, now that I'm being specific, that the instances, the number of occurrences will be a lot more in the simple past. So do you get the idea of the contrast between these two? The one on the left is showing research showed or studies showed, whereas the one on the right, the specific one, is showing the studies showed or the research. And of course, the research has shown 2%, because it's not vague, because we're talking about the research. However, if we talk about the research showed, it's 8%, or the study, sorry, 15%, or the studies showed 8%, and the study showed is 74%, compared with studies showed on the left-hand side, which is something like 3%. So the present perfect is the vague tense, if you like. That's one major use of it. And I'm not sure we teach that, but that's a kind of reason. So it's Diane Larson Freeman who pointed these things out and she coined this contrast between reason, and she's arguing that rules are static, and I'm arguing that rules are static, and because they're static, they have problems. Now, rules are quite useful for those early learners. There's something to give the learner something to clasp onto, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we kind of teach them as guidelines, and that there are many, well, they're not really exceptions to the rule because they are reasons. And we can only ever say some tends to be used more in positive sentences. Present perfect tends to be used for, but there are many, many exceptions. When we're getting up the learner scale, competency scale, and we're getting to intermediate and advanced, I would argue that this is where we can start to introduce material which is going beyond the rules. They have the rules, and I think the way that discussing reasons and looking at reasons, you need the basic knowledge of the rules to be able to understand where they are, if you like, being broken. But the important thing is, why are they being broken, if you like? The generalizations that rules capture are rarely broad enough, and that's why we have in the language classroom so many situations where we keep sort of saying, well, the student will come with something that they've seen or something that they've read or heard, and you have to sort of say, well, yes, I know I taught you that last week, but what you're bringing in now to the classroom is an exception, because the rule will never cover everything. Encourage them, the learners, to be curious. This is her idea of grammaring, that this curiosity and looking for the logic will actually help learning to be a lot more independent, for them later in life to stand on their own 2 feet with the language. Depends how competent we need them to be, but certainly when we're talking about international lawyers, politicians, advertising people, they need to be very competent in the language, and they need to be at the level of reason. She talks about, and this is nothing new, but she talks about form and meaning. Language, all language has a form. If it's a word, it's how you spell it, F-I-E-L-D, or how you say it, field. If it has a meaning, well, field has a number of different meanings. It can have a cow in the middle of it, field. You can have corpus linguistics, which is my specialized field. You can have cricketers fielding cricket balls. Even people in offices fielding my emails and fielding my telephone calls for me. For Diane Freeman, she also introduces this idea of use. When and why is the structure used in this way? Language teaching, I would argue, historically has tended to focus too much on form and forget, or hasn't focused enough on meaning and use. And here with the reason, we're looking at meaning and use. But she is arguing that we need to be giving the learner this kind of perspective so that they can then go look at the reasons for why these things happen. When learners come across a rule that seems to be violated, and not all reasons violate rules. Most of the time, the reasons reflect the rule, but the rule may be something of a simplification of the reason. But when there's a violation, when there's a breach of the rule, they need to try to establish the reason for it. Is it because language is changing, and language is dynamic and changing all the time? And particularly in the international setting, it is actually the global users of language, you lot, to a very large extent, that are responsible for changing our wonderful Shakespearean language. And I don't mind that you're doing that at all, because it's a very, very natural process. You know, fewer is changing to less. I even see borrow and lend, and it would probably horrify the average language teacher that, you know, I'll borrow you a pencil, meaning I'll lend you a pencil. Well, what's wrong with I borrow you, I'll borrow you a pencil? What if that's communicating and that becomes accepted by the international community as a way of communicating and has an effective message, then the language will change. All right is a classic example of, do you spell it as one word or two words? And I think nowadays you spell it as one. It's moved. And that's an example of a lexical change, a vocabulary change. But fewer and less is on the change. It's been on the change for quite a long time. And I would argue that in most cases now it's less. And if as language teachers we're standing up and saying, no, it's got to be fewer and less and it's countable, and but then to some extent we're standing in the middle of a torrent of change, and we're not going to win because the language is changing. There's a wonderful example in Malaysia where it's sort of see how. I met in Malaysia see how, which basically in British English it's let's wait and see. But in Asia, I do hear sometimes this see how, meaning, let's see how it pans out. I like see how. And now if enough Malaysians and Chinese and so on start saying see how, then it will take over the world and language will change. Is there a new meaning being expressed? And we're going to be seeing that in a minute. To each of their own. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. It's something which is on the change. Is there a reason that can account for what appears to be an exception? The famous McDonald's, which we will also meet in a minute. I'm loving it. You should, using a static love in a dynamic or continuous situation. Ooh, should that be allowed? Well, it doesn't matter whether you allow it or not. It's happening. It's happened. I'm hoping that the technology will work. We've got something between 99 and 100 people at the moment. And we're going to be dividing you, whether you like it or not. The computer will be dividing you into groups of 5. And what I want you to do is to look at the 5 adverts. But each group will get 5 adverts. And I'm going to give you 20 minutes to look at these 5 adverts and decide first. Well, it's going to be pretty clear. Let's show the first one. Think different from Microsoft. Now here you've got the advert, think different. And on the left and on below the advert, you've got example 1 and example 2. These are from concordances, from corpora. In this case, it's an American corpus of contemporary American, COCA. And I've just taken an extended example also, which contains, you can see, think different. So you've got the advert, which tends to be these 2 words in isolation. And you've got a couple of examples of where these words, self-same words, are in a context. And I want you to try to figure out, now, you may argue, well, that's nothing wrong with that. Well, yes, indeed, there's nothing wrong with that. But some people would argue it's think differently. It's not think different. But for Apple, it's think different. Now, if that is in breach of that rule, fine. But why? Why has the advertiser changed, or why has the advertiser decided to go for think different and not think differently? So the reason in this table, and if you can just replicate the table, just get a piece of paper, doesn't have to be all 5 of you, 1 person in the group just gets a piece of paper and just rules or even hand draws 5, what is it, 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each of the adverts, and then 1, 2, 3 columns. First column is the reason. In this case, it's the slogan, think different. The grammar rule is, well, I thought there were adverbs and it should be an adverb, not an adjective after the verb, think. And does it break that rule? Well, I think it does, but in which case, why? The explanation, the reason for being in breach of that rule, if you want to look at it that way, or the reason why the advertisers have done this. And it's not as simple as, well, they want to catch your attention because they want to deliberately use poor grammar. advertisers and people who brainstorm these kind of things, slogans, that spent, I think it was something like 6 months in discussion as to, and it stayed there now for 15 years, I think. And somebody was paid $6 million for singing that one. And you do the same thing with the advert number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And then we're going to come back together again. And I'm hoping that I'm just going to get some feedback and some points from you about each one of these adverts. I'm not going to ask each group to present or anything like that, so don't worry, in a very relaxed way, but we're just going to give you something, or I'm going to give you something to see what you can do with it, and see if you can establish this, you know, there's the slogan, but what's the reason for it? Is it breaking a rule? Or is it breaking one of the rules that we teach? And if it is, why? Why have they seemingly broken one of our wonderful English language teaching rules? I'm hoping Denise or somebody can actually help me and divide you into groups.
Yes, Creighton. First of all, the task sheet is already posted in the chat. So if you could just open the task sheet, and then the link is there, and then I'm going to create the group rooms now. So do go into your rooms, everyone. 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to open the rooms, 5 in each, except for a room. All right.
Participants, Ms. Ketki Shinde, Sharmila Ravi Kumar, please join room 3. Your group mates are waiting for you.
Okay, Denise is here, I think.
Yes, hi.
Yeah,
Are you
Denise.
okay here?
We want to look at the adverts. Where are the adverts? Not yet.
You don't have it. You didn't take it along with you, is it? Okay, don't worry. I'll post it for you.
Okay.
Right. Just a minute, lah.
Yep, no problem.
I will post it for you. It was in the link in the main room, but I will post it here. Task sheet. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay.
I don't know about the others in this room. I didn't see anything.
Do you all see it anywhere? You don't see it yet. Okay, let me try again. Where is it? No, here.
We saw your task sheet. We
There,
saw
there,
the
there,
metrics.
wait, it's here, it's here, it's here. Do you see it now in the chat?
Okay, so we just
yeah,
click.
you just click on that to open that. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
going to leave, and maybe I should just post it in the main one so that in case those who did not get it. So I'll leave your room first, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Hi, are you the only one here? Hi, is everyone here okay?
Hi, Miss Denise. We have a quiet group here.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have the task sheet with you?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, that's good then. Just somebody just lead and just, I mean, it's just, you don't have to get it right. It's just a matter of discussion. Okay, but I'm going to go to another room because they're calling for help.
Okay, thank you.
Don't hi.
Hi, Dennis. I mean, we
Yes.
are not able to see the advertisement, although we can see the worksheet.
Oh, the task sheet has got no.
Okay, the third in the same the worksheet there is we have to scroll down, is it?
Yeah, you just try. The advertisements are there, aren't they?
Okay, let me just try.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, we got it. Thank you,
Okay.
Dennis. Yes, thank you
no
so
worries.
much. Yes,
Bye bye. Is anyone here?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you all okay? Are you the only
Yes.
one here? How come there are only two of you?
Only two of us.
Anyway, you have the task sheet.
Yes, I have. I will
open up. Yes, no worries. You can share screen here. I think, can you all share? I think you can right within the room, your small little room here.
Okay, sure.
I'll try and bring in another one. This is room what? 18.
18, yes.
Okay, right. I'll try and get you some more. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, don't worry.
Denise?
Yes, what is it?
I just went into one of the breakout rooms. They're asking whether you can actually show the link again because some of them did not get it.
I know.
Whether it can be done through broadcast message to all.
I tried just now. The link doesn't work there. So we have to go into the rooms. They didn't take the rooms when they take it along with them when they went in. So if you go into the room and they don't have it, just paste it into their chat. That way they can get it.
Oh, okay. That means you go into the rooms and paste into the chat in that room.
Yeah, I did that just now for some of them. Yep.
And then they're asking, the second thing is, I went into the chat room to see whether they can actually share a screen because it would be much easier if they can share a screen while they're discussing.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought they can do that.
I don't know. Some of them say they can't do it. So it's like they're just groping in the dark. I look at you, look at me.
But
actually, they can, right?
They can. I think they can within their rooms. They should be able to. Let me see. Okay, let me see whether there's any other setting that I can do for them to check and see. Yeah, multiple.
You try going into one of the rooms.
Okay, I'll try. Okay.
Go into one of the rooms, get one of them to share if they can do it. Because I went to Sri Sam's room, they say they can't do it.
Okay, okay, right.
Okay.
Hello. Hi. Hello, are you all here? Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Saofong, is it? And Randa.
Hello.
Hi. Have you all got the task sheet here?
No, we haven't. And then
But
when I went back to the
how can we edit, madam? The sheet we
no,
got,
I'm giving you the sheet now here in your chat here. You have a chat box. You see a chat box at the bottom in your room here. You see the bottom, there's a chat. Do you see? Okay.
I opened it up, but there is nothing.
Wait,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
posting
it
it now.
opened.
Okay, now I'm posting it to you here. Can you see it now?
Okay.
Okay, now you click on the link there. Yeah, it
All
was in the other chat just now in the main room. You all didn't bring it in. It's okay. Yeah. So I will, and then the next thing, maybe either you look at it on your own, or and then you discuss, or you can actually share screen here. I think one of you can share also here. You should be able to share screen here. Can or not run?
Hello.
Yes, Randa, is it? Kumar, what do I call you? Sorry, what do I call you? Randa, Konda? Kumar?
I opened, madam.
Yes.
What next?
Do I call you Vlada Konda, or what do I call you? What's Kumar? What do I call you?
Yes,
Sorry.
you can call me Kumar. Kumar enough.
Okay, Kumar. Right. Can you open up the link and what do you see?
Yes, yes, I saw advertisements also.
Okay. Can one of you try to share screen so maybe it will be easier to discuss or not? Saofong, can you share screen at the bottom? Can you share or not? There's a share screen button.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I just press on it, is it? I just press on it.
Okay,
Yeah, you
okay.
see the arrow.
Yes.
You see the arrow there. Okay.
I shared. Okay, okay.
One person share, both of you
Okay.
can see already because you are in the same room. You must open the document first, you know. You open that document first.
Okay.
Open that document first, and then only you come here and you click the arrow. The green is green, right? Share screen.
Oh, right.
Then if you open it, you should see it somewhere already. Then you just click that one and it will appear inside here. You try and see while I'm here. I think, yeah.
Manage to share.
Okay, now you are sharing me.
Wrong thing, maybe. I've shared the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think you shared the wrong one. A few things will appear, right? You find the document. You open the document first, just that document first.
Yeah, I did. I opened it up just now.
Yeah.
Okay, I've opened it already.
Yes.
Then what should I do?
Now you go back to share screen. Click the green arrow that says share screen. Then within these confines in the Zoom here, you will see a few boxes of the documents that you've opened. Select the one that is the task one.
But there is only one document here.
Then open. Maybe is that the task? You have to open it in it's a PDF file, I think.
It is the same one. This is the one which I think is not the worksheet. No, maybe I can ask Kumar to try. Maybe you can try.
Okay, Kumar, you want to try? Now, if you cannot try, also you cannot share. Also, it's okay as long as both of you have it. You can say, okay, let's look at task 1 or task 2.
Yes, I did, madam. Yes, I did.
So you can also discuss in that way, you know. So let's look at task 1, task 2, like that.
Okay, I did.
What are you doing? Are you sharing?
Saofong.
Okay.
Yes, I want to share.
Okay.
Yes, have you seen?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay, 1 minute. Sorry to say. Yes. Safu?
It's not here yet. It's not here yet.
Yes, I actually did.
But it's not here.
Okay. Okay.
No, we are not seeing.
Hello.
Yeah, we are not seeing. No, we're not seeing.
Hello. Is it okay?
Yeah. No, we don't see anything.
Okay, never mind. Just a minute. Let me go back to the main room and see whether there's something there that I can do. So I'll leave your room for a while. Okay. Why don't you just discuss without sharing?
To each their own. Oh, I think if the grammar is correct, it's to each his own, is it?
Each his own. Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. You're right.
Okay.
It's not their own. It's not supposed to be their own.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Everyone.
So the yeah.
Yeah, you're doing good. Okay. Did y'all try sharing screen to see if you could share, one of you, so that you can?
Let me try one moment.
Yeah, maybe just try and see. Then if cannot, you're doing fine discussing like this. Okay.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yep, great. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, right. I'll see you then. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Wait, now I can't
Hi, Pushpa. Why are you the only one here?
I don't know. I was in room 17. I don't know how come I came to room 13.
There's no mind. I tell you what room were you in? I put you back there because
17.
17. Okay, I put you back there because there's no one else here. Okay, you go out. I will put you back to room 17. Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
Pushpa, if you can see me, you can hear me, right, Pushpa? Because I cannot assign you because you already have been assigned to your room is in room. Just now, what room was that when I went in and you were there alone?
Is this the rules?
Hi, are you all okay here?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, do you have the task sheet? You all have the task sheet with you to discuss?
Sorry?
Do you have the task sheet? The one with the...
Yes, I've taken a screenshot while I've written one. So we are just working out on this. So
okay.
How many adverbs do we have to find?
Pardon? Sorry?
How many adverbs?
There are, I think 3 or 4 or 5 there. You can do any one you like. Now I am posting for you here again in your chat. You see the chat box at the bottom here?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't have the task sheet, you can click on the link there. Then you can open the task sheet and look at it individually.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Yeah. And then if one of you know how to share, you can also share screen here. Open the task sheet and share. You can do that also.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Right. I'll see you then. Okay.
Thank you,
bye-bye.
ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye. Yes, hi. I heard you called for us. Anything?
We cannot hear each other.
I can hear you.
We cannot.
Some of you are Patmadi, you are muted. That's why you cannot speak. You have to unmute yourself. There's the arrow at the bottom. That is the mic at the bottom here. You have to click it. Patmadi, Patmavadi. Okay.
I just need to know delay in the session. Can you please let me know? Is there any delay in the session?
Pardon? Sorry?
Is there any delay in the session? Because I don't know whether it's going on.
We are now in a break. We are now
room number 6. And
yes.
in room number 6, I think.
We are now in a breakout room, group work. So you have been given a short task by Creighton just now, and he has given you a task sheet to a few advertisements to look at. So if you have not gotten it, I'm posting it into your chat box now here at the bottom of this room. There is a chat here. You click that, you will see the task sheet. You click on that. If you don't have it, click here. If you have taken it just now from the main room, then you can look at it already.
Okay. I don't see
at the bottom here
right now.
Yeah. Maybe your line is a bit problematic, yeah. But Telly, sorry, I don't see your full name.
Yeah. I'm Pueli, actually.
Pueli, okay, Pueli. You are okay, right, Pueli? You have the task.
I actually cannot see and I cannot hear anybody. I can't see anything.
Can you hear me or not?
Just now William was inside, but now I cannot hear William. I don't see William
has left this room. I think he has a line problem, I think.
Okay.
The others, I think Padmavati just now had some, I think she forgot to unmute herself. So now she should be able to speak already. Do you have the task sheet?
No.
No.
You don't have there? I've posted it in the chat now. Can you open it to see?
My page isn't responding.
Okay, you are also having a line problem. Okay, right. Okay, now so if you click this task, this shares, the bottom here, there is a, if you click the chat here, the bottom here, you see there's a chat, right? I've actually posted the link to the task sheet that Creighton showed just now. You can open that from inside this room. If it appears in your chat, do you see it in the chat?
No, I couldn't see anything. No, I couldn't see anything.
You don't see anything? I've posted it already.
No.
At the bottom here, you know, at the bottom of this box somewhere here, you find participants for chat, then share screen. You see that? Chat. You see, look for the box that says chat, and you click that one.
Okay, chat screen. Yeah, okay, yeah, I can.
You open, click. Do you see one message, task sheet during breakouts?
I don't have any messages.
You don't have?
No.
Really? Also, you can't see that the link that I posted.
My page isn't responding.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
But I don't have any chat screen in mine.
You don't have any chat screen.
Yes.
Am I going to give it to you now? If I give it to you, I can give it to you. I can't give it to you because I've already given it to you, the link, only that you all cannot open. Anyway, there are a few activities with the advertisements like those that he showed. He showed you one or two one, the Apple one, just one. Remember that one? And then there are a few more advertisements. If one of the problem is you can't access, and I cannot be here all the time because I can show, but I cannot be here. I cannot leave it. Because once I leave, the share screen will close. Why don't you go back to the main room? Can you leave now, both of you? Then maybe in the main room we can show you okay? Because you can, both of you can't access, right? Okay, right. Leave the room then. Okay, right. Thanks.
And if we just have a look at that first one, I hope that you can all see my screen. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can actually see that advert number 1? Yep. Okay, good. So now you can put things in the chat. I'd love you to also, so Denise, if we can remove the mute so that if somebody wants to comment, please do. This first one, any ideas of why, in British English, I think it would be think differently.
If anyone wants to speak, just unmute yourself. After speaking, just mute yourself. Because if we unmute everyone, then it could get very noisy. Yeah.
Or you can write in chat.
Yeah. Or if you can't unmute yourself, then you just tell us, raise your hand, and then we will unmute you. Yeah.
Hold on for a while because the all breakout rooms are not open yet, not closed yet.
Okay. Closed already. They've been closed. Yeah.
Yeah. So now the notice is there. It's all closed. So they'll come back. All right. Okay.
So for those of you who've just come back, I'll say it again, is don't worry if you had some technical problems. I went into some of the groups and some of you were able to talk to each other and show, and some others were struggling quite a bit. That's the whole idea about now coming back together again. And we'll go through the adverts one by one. And I'm starting with this first one, which is the Apple advert. Think different, be different. Thinking is being. We've got, I've got a lot of sort of, this is coming from a communication in the chat. So if you have your chat open as well, you can see what I'm seeing, which is people yeah, we've got think different, think big, which is in, well, it wouldn't be think bigly, would it? Think hugely, think, what are we trying to communicate here? What's the advertiser trying to get at? Is it just not the traditional adverb ly? Yeah, that's a grammatical explanation. Innovation. By breaking the grammar rule, they want to be different. Yes, that's the dare to be different. Think unique. That's coming closer now, I think. The focus is on different and not on think. Not sure about that, but interestingly, American, now there's I don't know whether we've got any Americans with us, but it's often said that American English uses more adjective where British English uses more adverb, and that it's quite common to see adjective after a verb in this way in American English. You also see it in English, in British English. There's examples of it. So it's not that this is something that the Americans do and the British don't. It is very much this idea that you're coming back now with thinking out of the box, thinking completely different. We talk about a different mindset. So it's not just adjusting your thinking. It's not just, you know, thinking differently slightly. It's a major rethink. It's you can put it into a different way of sort of what the advertiser is trying to get at here is by using this new Apple, you have a completely different mindset. You have a completely different way of working. So this is a very radical new computer tool that is going to enable you to have a completely different mindset. And you can see it, I think, with some of the other examples. It's important that a school not explore distance learning. It's important that a school not explore distance learning possibilities with blinders on. So don't just think differently with your blinders on, completely new mindset. Think different, think big. And you can see from the context how they're using think big. Now, these are examples from American English. This is COCA, this is the American corpus. And there are examples in the corpus of think differently in American English and think different. But the big thing which you see when you see lots of examples is that the think different is this idea of completely changing your thought into a completely new mindset. So there does seem to be a difference between think differently in usage, which is more a slight amendment or an amendment to the way that you think. But if you're going for a completely different mindset, then think different, think big. And you can see it again with example 2, I think. I've got my floating thing that I need to close. Hide, floating, whatever. And there in example 2, same sort of thing. And rather than a simple seamstress who dared to think different, dared to think in a completely different way. So with this first one, immediately we're seeing that the advertiser, and this is why advertising is so useful for language teaching, is that there's a lot of thought gone in, and you could argue that it's a breaking the grammar rule to get attention, but it's more complex than that. There's a lot more thought going into it. It's not, you can easily break grammar rules just to get attention, but once you've got the attention, then the reader needs to be working something else out. What about the next one? Spread happy. Sorry, spread the happy. Any comments? Again, you can put it into chat. If I say spread the, well, you can see what comes up. I should have blanked that a little bit. You can say to people, what's the next word? If I say spread the, can you type in the chat the next word that you think of? Spread the, yeah, it's happy. Spread the joy, spread the happiness, spread the happiness, spread the happiness. Yes, could we have a little bit more originality? Spread the positiveness, spread the delight, spread the love. Yeah. Nobody's actually spread the gossip. Spread happy life, yes, okay. Spread the happy life. So everybody so far has come up with positive, except for somebody. Thou shalt not spread the disease. Yeah, you spread COVID. You spread a virus. But if you look at the statistics on the table, so this is a frequency count from British English, from the Bank of English. And you can see that the most frequent noun after spread the, so this is spread the plus noun, 422 is spread the word. Now, interestingly, historically, it tends to be spread God's word, spread the word of the Bible. So we in a Christian culture, we seem to be associating this with something which is religious. Those of us who are religious will regard the word as being positive. God's word is not normally negative. It's a positive word. But we're seeing also the other positives: spread the wealth, spread the gospel, spread the message, spread the news. And that's an interesting question, which I've tried on quite a few people so far. If you say spread the news, is the news bad or is the news good? And I think I would argue that so far most people have come back and said, when you say the phrase spread the news, you're thinking about good news. So-and-so's had a baby, so-and-so's, they've got married. Yeah. So you can see that, okay, we've got one or two exceptions: spread the disease, spread the virus, especially with COVID days, but the majority are positive. And because the majority are positive, we have something called semantic prosody. In corpus linguistics, we call it semantic prosody. Now, in general English teaching, you may call it connotation. A word has a connotation and a denotation. Everybody likes to be called bachelor. Nobody likes to be called spinster. If you call somebody spinster in the United Kingdom, normally she will hit you violently, because spinster has very negative connotations. The denotation is that unmarried, of a certain age, that's about it. Female, yes, female, you don't normally get male spinster. Bachelor, unmarried, male, of a certain age. That's denotation. Those are the core. But the connotation, the implications of the meaning is that the spinster is this old lady who's knitting on a rocking chair with a cat, unmarried. Whereas a bachelor has this beautiful stereo system and ladies, you know, all over the place in the world, and bachelor pad and bachelor apartment and a red sports car, this kind of thing. It's and we do use it in advertising in real estate. Bachelor pad is quite a positive thing. A spinster pad would not sell, and it's the same sort of thing here. Is that we call it in corpus linguistics a semantic prosody. The semantic prosody of the phrase "spread the" is largely positive, which is why the advertiser has used "spread the happy." And you can see it being used in other ways. There's also the US food company Spread the Love. There's also an American, if you go on Google, you'll find it. It's for producing teaching material for young learners. And here they have used "spread the" and put a noun after it in order to utilize the positivity of the phrase "spread the," and you know they have gone for the normal pattern, spread the noun, and just sort of like put a happy in there. So it is breaking the rule with happy. It should be happiness, but it's a clever use of language. And you've got spread the joy. Now here, I managed to, well, yes, poetic license, but that you can do with lots of things. Poetic license is an interesting one. Poets do things for reasons. So advertisers have poetic license. Actually, everybody in this meeting has poetic license. When we are very creative creatures, humans. We're very creative with the language. And I think our learners, certainly at the intermediate and advanced level, should be allowed to be creative. But the thing about being creative, when we create a new word, we create it according to a rule. There is still a logic in Googleness, because if there wasn't, you wouldn't understand this play on word. And it's exactly what's happening here, is that we are very creative, and because we're very creative, the language is very dynamic, and it's a result of that creativity. Here I've managed to, now a Mercedes car, of course, the correct form of this should be to each his own. Any objections to that? Because we all know that men are the bosses on this in this world. So, you know, when I say his, I mean also her. You know, it's because as a man, I feel that I represent all humans. To each his own. Any problems with this? Yes, but the female market isn't important. I mean, women don't drive Mercedes. Good God, it's a man's car. Any objections to this? You've gone very quiet. You haven't hit me yet. So, as any man in this audience will agree at the moment, you are, yes, equality. Yes, ladies prefer BMWs. Yes, okay. Of course you're allowed to buy a Mercedes, and Mercedes would love you to buy a Mercedes if you're a woman. So in order not to alienate the female customer or potential customer, you can either have to each his or her own, but that's a bit cumbersome for an advert. And by avoiding, and you've written it in here, by avoiding gender bias, we use what we call the singular there. We have a singular they and we have a singular there. We never used to have it. And then before that, we did used to have it. If you look in older English, there is a singular and a plural use of they and a singular plural use of their. And of course, with the Me Too movement and all the movements that we've had, the singular there has come back. It is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, politically speaking, this is better than to each his own or to each her own, because if we agree on to each her own, then I'm going to get upset because I like Mercedes as well and I'm a man and I have equality with you, just about. If you will allow me to have equality with you, then I think we can agree on a compromise and use the singular there. We've got the singular you and the plural you, which in American English is this wonderful you and you all. Well, we've got it also with the they, which is why, again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's something which reflects a very conscious change in the language to be less gender bias. And you can see it with all these other examples as well. To each their own. Donald Trump, my God. Are we taking something from Donald Trump? He's wonderful. I like Donald Trump. I miss Donald Trump. Can we have him back, please? Because he was a wonderful user of language. The kinds of things that he would tweet were wonderful. If that's not your thing, you can get on the roll with Donald Trump, to each their own. Oh, this is a toilet roll. You can buy toilet roll with Donald Trump pictures on it if you want to from Google. And this broadcaster is saying, well, to each their own. And you notice that he is using there. I mean, would you hang, example number 4 I'm looking at now. I mean, how do you feel about Dad's tattoos? Are they part of the reason you're embarrassed by him? I'm not embarrassed by my father. I mean, would you hang out with your father? To each their own. We're you know, anything is allowed. I think that might be 2 girls or 2 teenagers talking. McDonald's, the next one, number 4. Why is it I'm loving it and not I love it? Anybody got a feeling for which one is more powerful? I'm loving it or I love it. Is it, am I allowed to use the emphasis on ongoing process? MacDonald aims to create a dynamic sense. Yes, it's more the dynamic aspect of it. I think we need to be a bit careful of this idea that the present continuous is used for current actions. Here we have a classic example where the present continuous is used for a number of different things. It's not one use. And I always, when my international students come to Birmingham, we're looking at language, and one of the first things I give them, I give them various pieces of homework. The first homework is to stand on an English person's foot, because if they stand on an English person's foot, the wonderful thing about the English person is that they say sorry. It's nothing, they did nothing wrong, but you know, somebody else stood on their foot and they say sorry. And it's the other thing is watching English people in Birmingham. Do they go round saying, I'm getting on this bus? Does the bus driver go, I'm driving this bus? What are you doing? Oh, it's a very false use of language. We don't very often actually describe what we're doing at that moment. It's very much more a period of time or a temporary action. I'm staying with my, or I'm living with my uncle at the moment. Perhaps you should say stay, but I'm living with my uncle, or I'm working on this at the moment. I don't normally work on this. So it's a temporary thing, but it's also whenever we use a continuous, we want to show, and we're emphasizing the dynamic nature. So the reason we say I've been waiting, I know it's not present continuous, there's present perfect continuous, but the reason, what's the difference between present perfect simple, present perfect continuous? Well, one of the differences is that we would use the continuous to emphasize the dynamic, or in that case, the frustration at having been waiting for the last 90 minutes. It's not I've waited for this bus, I've been waiting for this bus now for, so again, we have reasons for switching into the continuous. And here McDonald's has switched into the continuous in order to show that it's a dynamic, powerful, tasteful, pleasurable activity, and very common, the phrase I'm loving it, probably more frequent than I love it. So that's slightly worrying. And this rule about static and dynamic verbs, there's a lot of static verbs being used in the continuous, but there's always reasons. Interestingly, Justin Timberlake got paid $6 million for singing that. I'm loving it. It's an endless, that's a nightmare for me, is this endless activity of eating McDonald's. I'm not sure that's motion and emotion, yes. So that one's, and then this one is a very popular, you can see Subway, it's nothing new here. And so eat freshly, for me, that feels a bit odd. I don't know whether we would actually say eat freshly. But it should, I suppose, same as the think different. Eat healthily, but that works. And that could be a slogan here. But what about eat freshly? Grammatically, it should be an adverb. But even if we do use the adverb, somehow doesn't, yes, well, fresh food is the adjective. But when we put it after the verb, it doesn't feel right, I don't think. Eat freshly. And I think we're coming back again to, you remember that think different, the totally different mindset. Maybe here, again, there is this totally different way of eating. Eat fresh. Not just adjusting your diet, but going for a completely new lifestyle. And of course, Subway, in the same way, it's Apple computer giving you an entirely new life. Theoretically, if you start to eat at Subway, it will give you an entirely new life, fundamental change in your lifestyle. I'm not recommending this. This is what the advertisers want. But again, each of these examples, you can see that there is a reason why the advertisers are doing this. Slogan goes for short phrases, yes. Minimize cost, maybe, although £6 million was paid for that, loving it. Phrases statements seem to break rules to be unique. Yes, break rules to be, and the thing about advertising is if you catch the person's attention and they start talking about it, then your advert's successful. Yes, but that's too simple. It's more than that. They have broken the rule. Yes, it's probably a good technique, but they just haven't broken the rule. They've broken the rule because they've broken the rule, for example, to be less gender bias. They've broken the rule to show that eating a McDonald's is very much a dynamic, pleasurable process. They've broken the rule to show that eating at Subway will somehow change your life, which I don't completely agree with, but never mind. I don't eat at Subway. But now here we have an example of a reason lesson. So let's just stop sharing a moment. That's going to stop sharing. And if I, so there's two books. This is the Teaching Language, the From Grammar to Grammaring by Diane Freeman. This one has a chapter on reason and rule. She's talking a lot more about a very inquisitive way of teaching and encouraging learners to go and try to work some of these things out. Again, I think in that situation, we're probably talking about learners at an intermediate or a higher level, because you need to know the rules first to be able to work out why the rules have been broken or that they've gone counter to the rule. This book is the whole book on, it's from Danny Norrington Davis, and the whole book is about from reasons to rules. And from this book, I've taken this idea of what it would look like in the classroom. So Danny talks about a task-based lesson. Danny is very much a task-based teacher, task-based learning. So again, I'm hoping that you can see this. And this kind of lesson is not particularly new, but it has a new element in it because it's based around reason. This is how task-based lessons begin. It serves to introduce the topic. I don't know whether any of you have seen task-based learning, but there is the famous octagon from Jane Willis, and it starts with sort of introducing the topic. And this is exactly what's happening here, is that we're introducing, there's a lead in to the text, and then the kinds of text that Danny is suggesting, not necessarily written text, it could be a listening, restaurant reviews, news, TED Talks, He talks about extracts from TED Talks. TED Talks themselves tend to be a bit long. Song lyrics, which brings us back to that first song that you heard. Extracts from speeches, TV adverts. So we're now into advertising, which I've always found a very fruitful area to look at. Magazine adverts. The teacher uses personal response questions. What would you do in this situation? Why do you think the writer has, remember, so the first step is that they've read the text, could be quite a short text. But now the teacher is, and this is a very current fashionable thing at the moment, is getting the students to react emotionally with feeling with the text, so that they are, you're not just asking normal reading comprehension questions. This is trying to get the learner to put him or herself, or even themselves, into that situation of the text. If you were the child in the text, if you were the person in the text, what, you know, how would you feel? Why do you think the writer chose to do, why do you think the character chose to do this? So these are these kind of personal responses. There's no correct answer that the learner is giving you. The learner is opening up about themselves and how they would react in this situation. And then we move on to the reasons. So that the text which has been chosen, an advertising text, a restaurant review, has something in it that has broken a rule, or has used a rule, a piece of language, in a rather nuanced and a deliberate way. And so the teacher is able to focus on that, saying, why did the writer use the continuous in this case? Why didn't the writer use the simple? We would normally use the simple because we're talking about an action that happens a number of times or something like that. How does he describe the day? Why does he describe it? Why does she describe it in that way? And so the questioning is no longer, it's moving from descriptive to a little bit more deeper, trying to get them to analyze. And this is very much the kind of reasoning, the from grammar to grammaring that Diana Larson-Freeman's talking about, is encouraging learners to be forever learning, forever questioning, and this wonderful language curiosity, which all of us have. We actually enjoy, as language teachers, talking about language and how it's changing and this kind of thing. And if we can engender that in our learners, then, you know, the future politicians, future marketing people, future salespeople, all these kind of people are going to be, if you like, better users of the language, or keeping up with language change and becoming fascinated by some aspects of it. What's the new rule? There's a kind of new rule about the singular use of there. Why hasn't the advertiser followed the rule in this case? So we're looking for reasons, not just that they broke the rule. Why did they break the rule? And then a replication task or a transposition task. Danny talks about these two tasks. For me, a transposition task was something which we should not be doing a lot of the time, which is taking an active tense to a passive, changes active into passive, changes passive into active. No, because we have reasons for using active and we have reasons for using passive. That's not communicative, but that's not what Danny means. Danny means rewriting the thing from a different perspective, so that if we're talking about a restaurant review, now write the advert for the restaurant, write a letter of complaint to the restaurant as a customer that was not happy with this restaurant. That's what he calls a transposition task. A replication task is just repeating or recreating the original text, but from your notes or from some other form, maybe memory. And you can, for example, from notes, you just, so they can't see the original text, or they can't listen to the original text, and it's not purely a memory activity. All you're saying is, can you now write it in your own words? That's the replication task. And then finally, the students in true task-based learning fashion present their results. We should never give our students an activity to do where they can't show it and show the kind of product. And if they make mistakes, hopefully we can utilize some of what we've been talking about in the lesson or the previous lesson. This is what he talks about in the feedback loop, is that when we correct, we try to pick up on the things that we've looked at previously. I mean, that's basically good teaching. He uses two examples in his book. This one is all about Tough Mudder. I don't think the will is necessarily breaking a rule here, but it's an interesting use of will. It's this idea, again, I was talking the other day and the teacher was saying, well, you know, will and going to, I teach us the same. Well, it's like a Venn diagram, two circles. You've got will and going to, and in certain uses of going to and certain uses of will, they will overlap. But other uses, they will not overlap. An instantaneous or spontaneous decision is will. I'll answer the door. Oh, I'll answer that. Not I'm going to answer that. Premeditated, pre-planned is I'm going to. But here is kind of like will for a promise. You will be stretched. This Tough Mudder is, I don't know, Iron Man, or sorry, it should be Iron Person or Iron whatever it is. The event will run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You'll take on a 5-mile loop. You'll be stretched. You'll take an obstacle course. All laps and obstacles will be tracked. You will be pushed to your limits. Evidently, some people seem to enjoy and pay money for this kind of thing. The rule perhaps here is going to, that we should be using go, but I'm not sure about that. And will is normally used for prediction, but also will can be used for promise. And I think here is very much the use of sort of will, as in, if you pay me the money and go to this event, this is, you know, what I promise you will happen. By the time I get to Phoenix, is this future, you know, we have future simple and future continuous. And we rarely teach future continuous. This time next week, I'll be sunning myself in, well, I'll be sunning myself in Sheffield with current COVID restrictions. But the present continuous, the future continuous is often used with this short and long. By the time the first example, like this time next week, I'll be sunning myself in sunny Sheffield. By the time I get to Phoenix, she'll be rising. And Danny has in his book, a whole lesson which uses this song. They're reading the text for this song, they're listening to the song and working out why and how the grammar is being used in this case. And it's a nice example which does fit the use of the future continuous by the time. So these two examples that I've just pulled up from his book are not so much a breaking of the rule. They are much more of an exemplification of that rule and approaching it in a very cognitive way. Those are the two books I've talked about. We're going to be giving a PDF file of all my slides. If you want the original PowerPoints because you want to use them in teaching, please write to me and I will send you the original PowerPoints, because anything which I've used today, the adverts and things, if you want to use these kind of things, please do email me. And I'm going to be around, I've overrun by 8 minutes. That's terrible for Pelter, and I do apologize. Please feel free to speak to me or to post in the chat. I don't mind which.
Yeah, participants, you may post your questions in the chat box. Okay, as there aren't really many questions coming in.
Oh, there is a question there.
Oh, there you go. We got one. So this is asked by Nurlila Wati Mohamed Noor. She's asking, is this trend of advertisement language worrying you?
Who's you? Is it me?
Yes.
No. No. Because it reflects real use. We can't, as language teachers, stand and in the middle of a torrent of change and say this is wrong, because it's not wrong. Language is dynamic, and with English language, it's a huge number of people using it, and they're using it for different purposes. And you may stand there and object to advertisers doing this, but advertisers are going to do this. And people are going to, if you like, learn these forms of the language. But if you look at these forms of the language, they're not wrong. They represent what is behind the rules that we teach. And if we teach solidly to rules, we're the ones who are wrong. Because if you're teaching fewer and less, and fewer being the countable and less being the uncountable, then I'm sorry, but in a lot of the world now, that has changed. And that may not be that useful for modern learners, because they're moving into a world where that aspect of language has changed.
Okay, thank you. The next question is by Sweta R. Nair. She's asking, could you please suggest a good book that we can use for grammar practice and to learn grammar rules?
Well, yes, I can. Michael Swan. Most language teachers learned, if we're dealing with native speaker or American and so on, we were born into the language, but we don't actually know the rules of the language, and we can't teach our language just because it's our language. We ourselves have to learn, and I think most English teachers learnt through Michael Swan. And usually Cambridge University Press, if you look at Michael Swan, there's lots of different forms of grammar. There's grammar for students. And the book, you know, in the same way that we have a dictionary, language teachers should have a grammar. And a grammar is this book that has the grammar rules in it. Students should have a grammar, not only a dictionary. And it explains the rules of English. And these are guidelines. That's the important thing. These are guidelines. They reflect reasons. They reflect language. And it's a good way to begin, but we can't say to them, this is 100% concrete rule that everybody follows. And please tell the people off for the people who don't follow. You can't tell Mercedes off for breaking a grammar rule, because they haven't broken the grammar rule. What's happened is that the rules changed, or that the rule isn't broad enough, isn't sophisticated enough to cover all aspects of that usage. So we have to understand as language teachers the limitations of a rule. I'm not saying don't teach rules. I am saying that rules are a good way of beginning, but be ready for the fact that there aren't, if we call them exceptions, that there are an awful lot of exceptions. And I don't like calling them exceptions, because those exceptions are reasons. There's a reason for why the person hasn't followed a rule. And second language teaching is what I do. We all do the same thing. There's no real difference between teaching in English internationally and international situation.
Okay, there's another question from Arlen Parreno. He's asking, is grammar correction or corrective feedback still relevant?
Cool. Yes. Yes. One of the big things first is to understand whether it's a mistake or an error. There's a difference between a mistake and an error. A mistake is when the learner knows the rule or knows how to correct him or herself. And the best person to correct him or herself is the learner. So you start with learner correction, you then move on to peer correction, and then the last person to help with the correction is perhaps the teacher. Errors you may want to leave because they've been overambitious and they don't know the rule and the explanation at this point. But if it's a higher intermediate level, you may want to go into that. And nowadays, language teaching takes very much a cognitive, much more of a cognitive approach. This is something that I've seen in the change in my lifetime from an audiolingual behavioristic type approach. Cognitive linguistics and cognitive approaches to language teaching is becoming a lot more current. And yes, correction is used, but also often with some form of explanation or some kind of, there is a logic behind language and language use. We are logical beings.
Okay, there's a question. Should we not penalize students for these type of words written by them and on social media, perhaps?
No. They're going to be future advertisers, or somebody used the term poetic license. If you're penalizing future poets. Don't we want poets and people using poetic license?
Mm-hmm.
These are people being creative with the language. Certainly when we're getting to the upper levels, we want creativity with the language. And creativity with the language is understanding the rule and then deliberately breaking the rule in order to communicate a stronger message. That's like the people who are non-standard deviant users of the language are the very creative people on the planet. You know, the John Lennon. This is why perhaps using songs is not always the best thing to use in language teaching, because a lyric is not necessarily representative of the standard usage of language. Often in a lyric or a poem, the use of language is very creative, but it becomes a wonderful source of teaching material at those higher levels, because you can start to look at the logic of why the singer has used this tense and not this tense, used this verb and this verb.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to thank all the participants for your wonderful questions, but alas, time is not on our side, so we need to wrap up the session. So Pelta would like to thank Mr. Creighton Walker so much for your sharing today. It's not just informative, but it actually gives us an awareness, or like it makes us pay attention to the advertisements that we're seeing every day, because I think the meme culture on social media is faster than even advertisements today. Like you would have one incident today, and by within 5 hours you would have memes, and you also have products actually using these memes to reference such events to promote their products. So this is a very interesting topic, and thank you so much. Thank you again for the participants. We hope to see you again for our next webinar. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.